Hello everyone and welcome to Scoop with Us, your ultimate guide to what's buzzing, trending, and worth talking about. And today we're going to be diving into the phenomenon of that's been reshaping the way we entertain, educate, and inspire ourselves. And that is podcasts. So podcasts is going to it started, if we're going to go back in decades, it started in 2004, and this is an important information to start off with because recently it has been drastically changed the way people are interested in watching the podcast because we're in the digital era right now. So people are, it's not just for a certain audience or a certain generation. So let's take a break right now. We're back from the break. Moving on to continuing of what is a podcast. A podcast, as I mentioned, it was in 2004, and now it's for all the audience. It can be for all over the world as well. It can be for like kids, teens, adults, and even after the 60s. Why am I saying this? Because now podcasts is not just the way they actually catch their attention, the listeners, is because of for example, the topics. There are more than 30 plus genres and also the types. It can be through dialogue, can be solo, and other types as well. So this is a way that catches our attention. And something that's important to mention, it's not just for Mass Comm students, for example, or any Mass Comm professionals. It can be anyone who has a unique idea and know what they're doing and passionate about. And that's really important of when you got anyone starting. Okay, so as I mentioned, it is really important in this episode, we're going to mention why people are actually obsessing over podcasts. And I want you guys to stick around and stay seated because in the next few minutes, we'll be actually counting down the most famous podcasts of this year, 2024, and sharing the ways that captured our imaginations and why is it actually this popular. So it's really important. So I want you guys, like a spoiler alert, you might actually be binge watching these podcasts later on after this episode. We're going to be watching now our first report. Stay seated and you'll be fascinated. Keep watching.
I believe as a person who loves podcasts and is very much in deep research of podcasts, what makes a successful podcast would be the hosts, the topic, and making sure that you're targeting the right people. So I would choose the right topic and target the right people in the right way. So I think this is exactly what makes a good podcast, and this is my opinion. It's also about the host. I believe it's all about the capabilities of the host. It's about the communication skills of the host. So one host could make a podcast really like have a lot of audience, and then some other hosts are not like very capable. Okay. What are the steps of doing a good podcast? Would be first, you have to like see that you are able to do that. So you can be a good host, you have a good topic, and you have not just a topic, it's more or less like an idea because it's not just one episode, it's a series of episodes. So you should have a good topic and a good idea, and you should be a good communicator. And then you would target the right people, and then you would write your scripts, make sure that it's like fulfilling. And adding on that, the elements of a good podcast, I believe, would be having a good, strong intro, and that would be a hook because you need to grab the attention of the people in the beginning. And then maybe adding some interesting, like if it's just a solo style, so you're just talking like on your own, it has to be like a storytelling style. And then if it's an interviews, then you should choose the right interviewees. So I think these are the elements that would differ one podcast from another, and then it would actually make one podcast more successful than the other.
I am impressed. This was really informal and beneficial. Not like I am impressed. I got to know the elements, and for you guys also, I'm sure that you've learned something of what's been said in the report. Moving back, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm gonna talk about podcasts and why was it like really popular right now. So there are two power horse podcasts: is the AB Talks by Anas Bokash and Fingan by Yasser. Why those two? They're like similar, and at the same time they're not similar. And just to mention that not all podcasts, they could be having the same topic. However, like there are tiny things that you guys, for example, there's a podcast that I feel, oh, there's a connection, because a podcast, the listener and the host, there's a connection. And that's the point that I'm going to return back of Anas Bokash. He interviews celebrities, ultimate heroes that's known right now, and also entrepreneurs. And even he did like more than 100 interviews, and this was fascinating of how he's like not giving up, and shows how he's passionate about what he's doing, and he's really popular. He is actually, his skills is he is giving the interviewee to show the raw of themselves. Like, I mean, like there's an emotional interview. It's not just like a normal general question. For example, I got to know if there's a certain celebrity sitting with Anas in the interview. I was like, oh, okay, I'm impressed. I got to see, like, I didn't know about the celebrity, and I'm a fan with this celebrity, for example. So this is what is known for Anas. He's a diverse podcast that is known all over the world. He has this skills that he keeps on going, and even on improving himself. And by the way, fun fact, it's also on Netflix, and not just on YouTube, it's also on other platforms as well, and this is part of his tactics. And moving on to Fingan by Yasser. He's a Saudi Arabian. He's really, really known for his relationships. He gets to talk about relationships. It's not just about, he talks about like family, friendships, and not just love relationships either. More than 100 million followers or subscribers are interested in him. So these shows that there are two powerful, popular podcasts that is in 2024 here showing up. And if we're going to talk about Fingan, I told you about that. He has this, the coziness of you guys. Like, I'm sitting here, you are watching me, but you kind of feel that we're sitting together and drinking this coffee and listening to each other's conversation, etc. This is why he has his really, really great tactic on catching the attention of the listener. So there is a connection and understanding, I mean, and that's hard because we get to know the journeys, and you know that not everyone here, ourselves, like we're all human. There has to be a connection and emotion, is because we get to go through challenges, for example. That's why podcast is really important. It's not just formal and TV. Okay, so now we're gonna move into our second report. So I want you guys to stay tuned. You're gonna be fascinated as well. Let's go.